I'm going to use these buckets that I have at my house to illustrate how you're going to go about turning what you've saved into a paycheck when you stop working. Now, everybody's used to getting a paycheck, using that to pay their bills, maybe saving a little bit for their future. But the thing is, once that paycheck stops, that can be really upsetting for people. It can be jarring to think about how will I go about turning this pot of money that I've saved into a paycheck in retirement when I'm not working anymore. So today, I'm going to introduce you to something called the bucketing strategy. And the bucketing strategy can sometimes be referred to as the time segmentation approach to retirement income planning. We're going to use buckets. I want to first introduce the concept, how it works, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages and who I think it's for. So if you have $2 to $5 million saved for retirement, there's a good chance that the bucketing strategy could be a good fit for you. I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the very end. Up first in our bucketing strategy approach is the short-term bucket. The short-term bucket is going to be for all of your spending needs for the first 5 years. Okay. Now, this assumes that you know what your expenses are on a month-to-month basis. It's okay if you don't. I can help you figure that out. There's plenty of ways to arrive at what your true monthly expense figure is. And once we know that, we can park 5 years worth of that into the short-term bucket. Now, what's in this bucket are very safe, steady investments. I want to emphasize that over and over, that this is not about growth. Okay. This is about stability and making sure. Did you had a bug tried to attack me? Must have been one of those insurance people. Anyway, that short-term bucket, the investments inside of there, they're actually not meant for growth. They're meant to be worth every penny that they have to be worth when you have to pay that electric bill, when you have to pay your property taxes, when you have to go to the grocery store. We don't want the value of what you're using to fund your living expenses fluctuating with the market in any way possible. So these are very safe investments. You can think of them like cash, savings accounts, short-term CDs. You can think of them as multi-year guaranteed annuities. You can think of them as bond ladders, things that are very predictable and steady. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that income into your expenses. Make sure those expenses get nice and paid. Now that we've exhausted the 5 years of expenses we put into the short-term bucket, we're going to move over to the intermediate term bucket. It is meant to cover the 6 to 15-year stretch of time. Now we're investing for the time period that's beyond that 5 years that we parked into the short-term bucket. And this bucket is going to hold investments that are going to grow, hopefully beyond the rate of inflation. We want this to be a little more aggressive than what we had in here, but not so aggressive that we're going to be shooting the lights out. This is not a super aggressive allocation inside here. You can think of this as maybe intermediate term bonds. You can think of this as probably a balanced allocation. It's really meant to get you invested for replenishing the short-term bucket. When this runs out, there's a couple different ways that we can refill this. It might make sense to go ahead and take the intermediate term bucket and take some of the growth that you've enjoyed in that intermediate term bucket and pour it back into the short-term bucket to replenish it. Okay. So a little more aggressive than what's in here, but not as aggressive as what's in the long-term bucket. The long-term bucket is going to be your growth investments. These are the things that you're investing for years 16 and beyond, your long-term growth. This will segue nicely into the advantages and disadvantages of the bucketing approach and who it's for and who it's not for. So the long-term bucket is going to be where you're going to have most of your growth-oriented investments, things like your stocks to real estate, things that are going to probably go up over time if you give them long enough to bake. So the long-term bucket is going to be your most investments by far. And there's a different way of refilling the short-term bucket that we might tap this. Say for the example, you've experienced really strong growth in this bucket, much stronger than you anticipated. We might, after exhausting your short-term bucket, we might actually skip the intermediate term bucket and just go ahead and refill right from the long-term bucket. So there's a number of different ways that we can make sure that money keeps making its way back into the short-term bucket to replenish it. And that way you have money in cash that is not going to be subject to the fluctuations of the market. Now, if you have money that's parked in something that's pretty steady and stable for the next 5 years, this can be really reassuring for people who are worried about retiring into a bad market or experiencing a bad market just after they retired. Research has shown that when you retire into a bad market or you experience one just after you've retired, that impacts your ability to fund your lifestyle, and it significantly increases the chances that you're going to run out of money in retirement. So we don't want that. And the bucketing approach can make a lot of sense for people who are worried about that, rightfully so. It can also make a lot of sense for people who understand that they're going to have phases to their spending in retirement. Early on in retirement, we're pumped, we're jazzed, we're having a good time, we're going on trips, we're traveling a lot, we're probably doing things that we have put off for a long time because you may have been working and raising a family. And there just wasn't enough money or time to do everything you wanted to do. And now that you're retired, that may not be the case. So you have the freedom to spend and go do things that you haven't been able to do before. So you might be in a position where your spending is going to really increase early in retirement. But then as you start to get into the middle of your retirement, sometimes referred to as the slow go years after the go years, you might be in a position where you're still doing stuff, you're still having fun, but you're not quite taking the safari trips anymore. And then eventually we get to the no-go years of retirement, later in retirement, where we might be looking at where is our money coming from out of the long-term bucket. You're probably not traveling much or doing as much fun stuff as you were before, just because the passage of time and health usually catch up to people and it makes it harder to go do that stuff. So you probably stay a little closer to home, but now you're probably spending more on healthcare related expenses. So we definitely still need that long-term growth that the long-term bucket hopefully afforded us with the investments that we parked inside there. So the bucketing strategy can make a lot of sense for people who already have $2 to $5 million that has enabled them to graduate from this idea about, like, can I retire? That people who might have 1 to 2 million or maybe even under $1 million, they're worried, can I retire? Do I have enough? But if you have 2 to 5, there's a good chance that barring any significant healthcare expenses or crazy lifestyle expenses, like if you decide to become a boater all of a sudden, or you buy a significantly different boat that you had before, yeah, all right, maybe your expenses have changed dramatically, and perhaps we need to have a conversation about just how sustainable that lifestyle is given what you have saved. But barring that, those kind of exceptions, if you have 2 to 5 million, we should be able to put together a really nice retirement for you. And you're not worried so much about, can I retire? And now you're thinking more about, what can I do with this money? What can I do with it to help my family or help others? So a lot of people are charitably inclined, or they might be thinking about, what do I want this money to do? Where do I want it to go? Who should benefit from this in the end? After I'm gone, what will happen to this? So the bucketing strategy, one of the advantages of it, of all the different kinds of ways that we can put together a retirement paycheck, it can often produce one of the bigger ending values or estates when you're gone, because all the money remained liquid. You had this nice big long-term bucket invested for a very long time with pretty aggressive investments that, given enough time to bake, probably did pretty well. And now when you've gone, there's probably a decent sized pot of money that, if you had pursued another retirement income path that was, say, you purchased annuities. Now, those annuities may not have afforded you the death benefit option. There was maybe a trade-off you made in exchange for the guarantees the annuities made. Maybe there was not going to be any money left over once the annuity was gone when you died. So it became, whatever you put in became the insurance company's money at that point once you died. That kind of approach is different, and the trade-offs that you got for that guarantee that you received from the annuity doesn't come for free. So it often means that you have a smaller estate in the long run. Now, if you're the kind of person who's thinking, yeah, I'd really rather have all of my money guaranteed to me, my income that is, then that approach might make sense. You might not be as worried about what you leave behind. Or maybe you just are the kind of person who isn't as worried about a legacy goal to begin with. But if you are, the bucketing strategy can make a lot of sense. Now, there's some other things that you should be aware of if this sounds pretty good. The other advantages are that you had flexibility. So suppose that in year 7 of your retirement, you're in your late 60s, you experience a significant health event, and now we need a lot of money very quickly. You have the option to raid this long-term bucket and just pay for the care that you need today. Now, if you had previously in your retirement taken a big chunk of this money and parked it into an annuity that was going to make it really hard or maybe impossible to get money out of quick, fast, and in a hurry for a significant life event, then that's going to be a disadvantage that the bucketing strategy thankfully doesn't have. It gives you flexibility to marry the expenses that you will have in the future with the assets that you've built. So we can figure out how to match those expenses with assets from the right bucket. Other things to be aware of are, this strategy is going to require you to have the guts, basically, to rebalance into more stocks when the market is down. Sure, as the day you were born, The market will decline at least somewhat, somewhere along the way during your retirement. And if you haven't already been rebalancing into more stocks when the market declines, then perhaps this may be new to you. Chances are that you've been doing it, but it wasn't such a big deal because you were working and you didn't feel it. You never felt it because it didn't influence the way you paid your bills because you still hopefully had a job. When you retire, and now this is the source of your paycheck, and you have to put more money in the stocks when you're already seeing red and you're logged in and your accounts are down, it can feel pretty jarring. It can feel not good. So it takes some guts, and that's not for everyone. So the people who have this $2 to $5 million that I think this bucketing strategy can work for, that are thoughtful and they're thinking, all right, I've built this wealth, I've amassed it, and it's not just for me, right? It should be for my family. It should be for charities or organizations that I care about. This can be a great fit for them because it gives them the option to take care of other people after they've gotten through their life, they've paid all their bills, and there's an estate that we can use to benefit people or causes that you care about. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe to my channel. There's a free retirement income assessment tool that there's a link to in the video description that I encourage you to check out if the bucketing strategy sounds like a good fit for you. This retirement income assessment, it's totally free, and it will help you figure out, yeah, actually the bucketing strategy is a good fit for me. It will also uncover if you may be a better fit for another strategy, either the retirement income flooring approach that I alluded to with the use of annuities, and plenty of other retirement income strategies that are out there. My name is Brendan Dooley. I'm a retirement income planner. I help people who have $2 to $5 million align their money with their values and also make sure that they don't run out of money in retirement while paying the least amount of taxes over the rest of their life that they possibly can, so that they can give more money, do more things, have more fun over the course of the rest of their lives. I welcome the opportunity to do the analysis for you via that retirement income assessment that I described and show you some of the retirement income styles out there that might be a good fit for you.